And there we had David Bowie telling us all about changes. And on the line, I have Jane Waterson, and she's going to be talking to us about change. And now, this year we talk about 2020 being a year of change, and it really has been for all of us. Change is inevitable. And sometimes we choose change and sometimes it's thrust upon us. And as I said, we're living through constant change at the moment, extraordinary change in our work life, in our home life, in the way we're educating our children, how we work, how we shop, how we study, just about everything. And some of us adapt to change quite well and other people not so well. So Jane is going to talk this morning about how we can adapt and manage changes in both our personal and our working lives. And Jane's from Delta Mash, and she has been involved in change for many, many years, both on the receiving end and obviously on as an advisor. And so Jane is going to give us some insight on how managing change is the way to go rather than letting change manage you. Good morning, Jane.
Hi, Chrissie. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Look, we appreciate your time. Look, let's go back to basics, right back to basics. What exactly is change? Is it something different? When people talk about change, what are they talking about?
Yeah, sure. So, look, life is complicated. Life is fun, exciting, it's full of the unknown. And change is a really big part of that. We all know change is a very special word at the moment and can invigorate a lot of feelings from different people. And change can come in all kinds of shapes and sizes.
Well, can I ask this? Why do people resist it? And I'm talking in personal lives, in work lives. Why is it when they hear change, they go, oh no, here we go? Why is that?
Yeah, look, naturally we are creatures of habit and we like consistency. Change kind of goes against the grain of who we are and can really reach outside our comfort zone. So when we tend to resist change, it's because we actually feel a loss of control. You know, if you're starting a new job, new people, new company, new role, there's a lot of change and you feel a bit out of your comfort zone. So it comes back to wanting to feel in control and trying to reach out and find that when we tend to resist the change.
That is fascinating. So even, for example, when students weren't going to school and parents and carers had to educate their children at home, there was an enormous amount of fear and a lack of control. Will I be able to do it? Will I do it right? Will the kids be happy? It is basically goes back to control. So there's these amazing emotions that are coming. So, okay, all right, solve the world's problems, Jane. How do we deal with it? Are there steps, practical ways that we can approach change, both personally and maybe in the workplace?
Yeah, definitely. So look, when we're looking at personal change, the first step you want to start to take is actually by acknowledging your feelings in relation to the change. And then start to focus on little things to feel a bit more in control. And this can be really simple steps to take, such as make small plans and follow through. Make a list of to-dos and start ticking some of those things off. Make a new routine in line with, your new life or your new normal, and reaching out to a friend or family member who's going through something similar.
It's interesting. Can I just say, we hear this phrase, the new normal, and it's one of those, those phrases that people are sort of bandying around at the moment. But the new normal, what does it mean? How do we know what the new normal is, I guess?
Yeah, look, I think it's something that you're there when you look back and you see what was in the past of the way your life previously was. You don't always know when you settle into the new normal. You tend to look back, and you look back on the journey that was and the roller coaster of emotions when you start to settle into that. But when we go through change, one of the good things to keep in mind is it's a pretty set track of emotions that we follow. And when we're starting to feel a bit of acceptance of our, new normal or our new way of working or new house we've moved into, maybe you've, moved in with a new partner or have had a really big change with COVID, with family or with work. So then we start to take a bit of a breath and feel a bit more of acceptance to the new state, then we know we're a bit of the way through the change.
Can I ask you this? Let's divide it into two. say I'm the person that has to implement change. Say I'm bringing change into my household or into my workplace. And the other side I want to look at is, which you've already touched on, is if it's being impacted on me. So let's start off. If I'm the one that has to implement change, what would be, say, 3 things that would help me to be more effective and not to engender so much emotionality in the people I'm putting the change on?
Yeah, so look, if you're implementing change, what you want to be looking at is getting really clear on what the difference is between what you're doing today and what people will need to do in the future. And a really simple way to look at this is just by writing a little list and writing down, what's going to be happening in the future of what's different to today. And then right next to that, what you can do to make it a little bit easier. So, for example, if you're at work and you're getting a new laptop, for instance, right, it might be a big change if you're working from home for the first time, new technology. So the new laptop will be the change. And then next to that, you want to write down a few dot points of things that will make it a bit easier for you. So that could be, getting training. It could be, setting up some virtual coffee sessions to stay connected. So you want to start to get pen to paper and get really clear on making little plans and executing them, and that will help you feel more in control.
Oh, it all keeps coming back to that word control, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So whether you are what you're saying is whether you're implementing or having change implemented upon you, personally or in the workplace or in anything you do, talk to yourself. You're almost saying and say, how can I feel more in control? Unfortunately, what do they say? The amygdala hijack happens and the emotionality and the other things start, don't they? So let me just ask, are there stages in managing change? I mean, does acceptance come easier as it moves along, or are some people become more resentful as the change is implemented?
Yeah, look, there's definitely stages. So at first we tend to feel hopeful. This could be moving in with a new partner, or you might feel quite shocked, such as when we went into COVID isolation. And then you go through a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, but it's a very, when we look at behavioural science and how this works, we tend to follow a very similar roller coaster of emotions each time. So it's good to remember that. We then feel confusion, feelings of anger and depression, and you can experience stages of grief. Change isn't always easy. I personally felt a big emotional dip myself earlier this year, like many people have, and COVID change has been hard.
Yeah.
But we do move through that. After that, the emotional dip, we normally start rationalising what's changed. We start thinking over feeling and becoming more comfortable. We move towards accepting what's changed and coming back to that, new normal statement that we keep hearing.
Oh, great. So it's not wrong to feel overwhelmed in dealing with change. And
No,
given the
not at all.
and given the extraordinary fluid lives we're living at the moment, and long-term change can often be for the better. So, Jane, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Thanks for your insight. We will accept the fact that we're going to feel certain ways, and then maybe as rationale comes in a bit more, we can be more committed to practical ways of making change work for us, because it's inevitable. I think one of the things that people often say is there's one thing that's constant, and that is change. Thank you, Jane Waterson, for your time, for your expert advice, and we are very appreciative. And right now we're going to play Happy Together with Shane Hampshire, because given that we accept the inevitability of change, perhaps, in fact, we will be happy together. Thanks again, Jane, and we'll talk to you another time.